This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, go ahead, Kurva.
First we posted leading, then its differences came. So then you posted again non-leading ledger. So then reversed and again you posted. So why I have little confusion in non-leading ledger posting and why you posted non-leading ledger.
Okay. Now I posted non-leading ledger only for showing how we can post the entry with respect to leading, with respect to non-leading. And in case if you post entry only to a leading ledger or to a non-leading ledger, and later on you realized it is not supposed to be a ledger specific entry, it is supposed to be a common entry between both the ledgers. Then instead of reversing, how do you pass the remaining part in the other ledger? That is what we did. Okay, in short, what we did yesterday was only to see how we can post entries to the ledger specific, and if something goes wrong, how do you rectify it? In short, how do you reverse it? How do you repost it?
So in the last part, what you have done, Ajay? I'm not getting.
In the last part, what I did, I reversed the entry. Okay, when I reversed the entry, what I did, system had posted entry in a different way. Because what I was doing in such a way that if you are looking at the scenario that the entry was processed and it is posted only to one ledger. So before you make any corrections, any reversals, we understood that you need to look at what entry is posted, what is the difference you are getting, whether to remove the difference you need to add the value or remove the value. In short, we need to understand whether to debit or to credit.
Okay.
Okay, so we have seen from the accounting point of view what was the balance before our correction. After making the correction, how balance is turned to other number, and how do we bring it back to the original position.
Okay. Instead of doing that, is there any other way short processing? So removing the differences.
No, you need to reverse the
Oh,
entry whatever is posted to a ledger specific and pass a common entry like without ledger, which will update both leading and non-leading.
oh.
Ajay, how to reverse entry for specific ledger that I did not see.
Normal way only, FB08, no change. Only for posting you have FB01L, FB50L. For reversal it is the same way. Wherever it is posted, from everywhere it will get reversed. Reversal there is no change, same way.
No, but Ajay, in FB08 there is no there is no ledger mentioned there.
Correct. If your original entry is posted only to a single ledger, okay, when you reverse it, it will be reversed only from that ledger. In short, when you're doing a reversal, you're going to put a document number.
Correct.
So that document number, if it is posted to a single ledger, only in single ledger it will reverse. If that document number is posted to both the ledgers, like multiple ledgers, in all of those ledgers your entry will be reversed. In short, the negative impact or the ulta impact will come for your cancellation when you do a reverse.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Ganga.
Yeah, hi Ajay.
Yeah.
So this ledger comparison in GCSE and variance adjustment, is it a mandatory activity over the month end?
No, not mandatory. In case if there are any entries which are processed by your client
Mhm.
to perform the proper reporting, let's say especially there are entries related to some tax related or legal related transactions wherein you need to report certain entries according to IFRS only for your reporting purpose. and according to Indian accounting standard or according to US GAAP standards. In such case, for you to complete the reporting, you need to make sure the total balances are matching as per your accounting principle.
Right.
So in some situations, if there is any mismatch like this, if you need to adjust any amount, you don't want to hit this impact in both the ledgers. You want this
Right.
impact or this correction to happen only in leading or non-leading. In such case, you will pass this entry, and if you want, you can reverse it the next month first date.
Okay.
But
But I
when
mean,
you want,
if
when you
the variance, right,
yeah, but when you pull the report from the system, your auditor or anybody, they do not want to see the manual adjustment, right? They want to see, or they will consider the figure which is directly coming from the system.
right,
So they don't approve or they don't consider. You pull the data from system 100 and then manually you're adjusting 10 and then you're showing me 90. Nobody wants it. So, but instead you will put a 10 entry directly in the leading or non-leading ledger. Later on, if you want, you can cancel or reverse it. But for the reporting purpose, you want system to pull the data. And while writing the entry, while reversing the entry, you will put clear narration or description. This entry is processed for this particular purpose as per the Indian accounting standard guidelines or as per IFRS guidelines. This amount is being adjusted. Something like that the users will put and they will rectify it. I mean they will cancel it later on.
okay. So it's a business requirement. I mean, business
Business requirement.
intention, right? If they want to keep the
Correct.
variance, they will leave it as is.
Correct. But in general, in case if somebody is asking us or your client is using it, as a consultant, we have to be aware of these functionalities. At least should not be a surprise that and I do not know, but at least if you know that I heard this somewhere or I have seen it somewhere, we can at least manage or you feel comfortable, confident when these kind of points are coming.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Swarna.
Hello, good evening, Ajay.
Yeah. Good evening.
Uh, First thing, why the end user will post in this transaction? Like, in what type of scenario will they post?
Ledger specific entry.
Yeah, ledger specific entry.
Normally, when we are using ledgers, we are representing each ledger as each accounting principle, either Indian accounting standard or your IFRS accounting standard or US GAAP. Based on the respective country, you have country specific accounting standard, and for your common consolidation purpose, we have IFRS accounting standard, correct?
Yes.
And from accounting principle to accounting principle, most of the things are common, especially things related to taxation, things related to your fixed assets are slightly different. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In such case, if they wanted to make sure that the right values are appearing, whatever the excess amount or shortage amount which is recorded in any particular account, due to this localization or country specific change, they will adjust the amount accordingly to ensure that the values are properly updated.
Okay.
Let's say for example, if you take tax or if you take asset, if you take the asset or if you take the tax, assuming in your leading ledger, in the non-leading ledger, if the same entry is posted both the places, now in depreciation that issue will not be there because it will be posted separately in S4HANA. When you talk about taxation, assuming that according to Indian accounting standard or according to US GAAP, your tax is 10%. Okay, maybe if you consider your jurisdiction or if you consider your GST, assuming GST is talking about 10%, 12% taxation, your jurisdiction is talking about 8% taxation, and your IFRS, according to your IFRS, assuming that on all the sales you are going to deduct 5% commonly as tax, or a random tax code or a random tax figure. because you wanted to take the net sales value, right? Your sales value, how you are going to get sales, and then you're also going to consider the tax amount.
Yes,
So
both.
in my reporting, let's say I don't want to consider 12% as my tax. I want in all my IFRS accounting or my consolidation purpose, I want to put 5% of my tax on the sales. If my sales is 100, I want tax to appear as only 5. But whereas according to India, it is coming as 18, or some other country 8, 12. Now there is a mismatch.
Yeah.
So in this case, you may be passing an entry in the tax GL account, or you may be creating a new GL account like tax adjustment or any other GL account, wherein whatever the excess amount or shortage amount is processed due to this country specific or the valuation differences, you will post an entry only to the respective ledger, so that 12 will be adjusted and it will show as 5.
Okay.
Okay, these are only for the reporting purpose, reporting requirement. If your client has this kind of requirement, we have to understand how do we meet or how do we handle these situations requirement. Tomorrow people might also ask us, why do we use ledger specific posting?
Yeah.
Then at least we have to be in a position to tell these are all the reasons where these can be processed, and how do you identify if there is any difference or no difference. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ajay.
Yeah. Sanjeev.
Yeah, Ajay, I want to explain a scenario. For example, a customer has got four companies, and those four companies have got four physical periods, different physical periods. So the end users in will they post in only those non-leading ledger, or both leading and non-leading ledger? Where they will post?
For the normal transactions, you mean to say, or this kind
Yeah,
of
normal.
adjustments? Normal
No,
transaction.
normal transaction.
Normal transaction, whenever they record, they don't put any ledger there. If you look at the screen,
Hmm.
now
No,
this
but
is normally, yeah, go ahead.
their non-leading ledger, like for example, Indian users will be from April to March, like that. Different countries may have good different fiscal period. For that, they have to use that ledger only, or in the
They
without
don't use
ledger
that
they will
ledger.
post.
Without a ledger only they will use it. And here the company code, whatever is directly assigned to your company code, like your fiscal year variant. In our
Mhm.
scenario, we are using two ledgers, leading and non-leading. For leading, we are using Jan to December. For non-leading, we are using April to March. Correct? Huh?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And whenever you record any transaction, by default, system will show the period as, let's say, if I put our company code only, 9PBI. Now I am trying
So
to record a
yeah.
transaction in current month. It is giving period as 10. Now, if I am a user who is working for Indian company code, I may get confused. It is supposed to be 7.
Mm.
Is that what your point?
Yeah, that's what they should put 7, or they should put
10 only,
they
because
should.
whenever the users are posting the entry, before handing over the system to them, we will be giving them the training. So during the training, we will tell them that whenever you record any entry, system is going to take the period based on Jan to December. But when you record the entry, it will be updated automatically in your local reporting, which is B9 ledger, period is a 7. So that they understand. So by default, it is updating in corporate reporting ledger. So in our local reporting ledger, it will be automatically converted into period number 7.
Okay. Means in real time, you mean to say they won't use ledger specific posting. They will use without a ledger, right?
Without ledger only. Ledger specific is very rare. Maybe during the month end or during the year end, when they close the full books, that is where they wanted to ensure that the total reporting is according to your accounting principle.
So, for
Let's say
example,
you
yeah,
go
one
ahead.
country is having one country is having a physical period from July to June, for example, so they will post as usual from January to December, and it will get updated in the back end, whatever physical period is there. Like that, it will happen, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Vinod? Sandeep?
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, audible.
Sir, in ECC, we have in FS00 an option called clearing specific to ledger group. Whereas in S4HANA, we have posting specific to ledger group. So this is one part, and actually my doubt is what does it refer to clearing specific to ledger group in ECC, and when while in FS00 there is also not posting specific to, it is open item by ledger group. Do we have to select both the open item and open item by ledger group option, or can we select only one? So that is my doubt.
No, only one, only one. In case if you wanted to, let's say you are posting any entry to open item, it will appear as
Okay.
open in leading, non-leading both.
Yes, yes.
Right? For any reason, if I post any entry to the open item, only to the leading ledger. Now, if I wanted to
Okay.
clear it, so if you put that a tick mark, clearing by this one, posting by this and ledger specific, it will allow. Because there is a slight changes between this. When you talk about open item, we are also talking about customer vendor account, not only the GL.
Yes, yes. The reconciliations.
Right. So these entries are not allowed in ECC. So there are
Not
certain
allowed.
limitations like ledger specific. If it is open item, we cannot post in ECC. There are certain limitations.
Yes, 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 yes. We can't
Now
post
these
open item.
correct. Now these limitations are removed in S4HANA. There are certain exceptions. That is the reason you find additional functionalities which we can experiment with vendor accounts or customer account to understand the clear picture. When we do it with
Okay,
GL, we will not be able to understand it. We need to do it with subledger like your customer account or vendor account, where
okay,
whether we can pass entries to a customer account only to leading ledger, only to non-leading ledger. Can I clear it only in leading ledger? Keep it open in non-leading ledger.
okay, okay, okay. So, okay. Clearing specific to ledger group means you can clear the open items ledger wise specifically. That is the
Correct.
meaning of that.
Right.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Ajoy?
Yes, sir. I have one query. Need to clarify. That sir, in the last week session, you were saying that you might be taking some correlation class in the 7:30 p.m. batch, right? And it will correlate with the 9 p.m. batch. Some class, not every day. Are you already going to take that class?
No, no, no. For
Because
that, we need to start accounts payable basics, accounts receivable
okay.
basics. Then you can relate those two.
No, sir. Actually, I have some problem during the time issue. Okay, my 7:30 is not possible for me actually, sir, because of
No,
my
that
office
is
timing.
that is only relation. It's not continuation. That's only the relation. You will
Okay.
get additional points. You will get to know different points there. But whatever we will be learning in 9 p.m. only.
Acha. You are only. You
Here,
will
when I do it,
okay. Yes.
here when I do it, we will do the configuration. We will test it in a sequential order. Okay,
Okay.
in 7:30 we don't go in any sequence. There is no sequence. So we will tag
Acha.
randomly. We will discuss different points to eliminate the confusions. To eliminate the confusion, I mean to say, if I'm talking about topic A, B, C, D, anything, so you have to
Hmm.
collect it, catch it, what I'm talking about. Should not be like only if you know the heading you can connect it to it. If you do not know the heading you cannot connect it to it. That should not be the scenario, because tomorrow when you are in the interview or when you are in the project, when you are talking to a user, they might ask you, they might talk to you about anything, correct?
Right, sir. Yes, sir.
So we need to ensure that spontaneously you are able to respond to your client or to your user, to your interviewer, and then make a discussion or make sure that they are convinced, they don't get a feel that you are not aware of it or you are not understanding what they are explaining.
Okay.
All of a sudden, when you are at this situation, when you are at this environment, we will get confused because suddenly you need to think and then on the spot you need to respond. Otherwise we will take
Yes.
time to reply because you need to understand this question or this is related to which topic, and this topic I have not practiced or I am not aware of this. So all these things will run backend in your mind, and by the time you respond you take a little time, and this gap
Yes.
will give a very bad impression in the interview. When I say very bad impression, I am asking you a question, and for every question, if you're or for most of my questions, if you're taking time and then answering, I will feel that you by hearted everything or you do not know anything, you're thinking and answering me. So that gives a negative impression.
Right, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
All right, any questions on this ledger specific posting? Else we will proceed to the next point.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, see, in the while doing configuration, we will mention K4 and posting period variant, right? So when we come to the Indian related taxation, Indian related company, when we have to report these financials, how system will take this one? So for suppose, for example, if I post for the October month, it will be 10th month, but India it is 7th month. How system will take and how we are manage this one?
Okay. Let me display any one document. Okay, if you see this document or if you see this entry, in which period it is showing that the entry is processed?
10th.
10th period. In which ledger this is 10th, that we are unable to say because there is nothing called a ledger here, correct?
Yes.
Because I am able to see company code, I am able to see fiscal year, period, ledger group is blank. Whenever you see ledger group is blank on the display screen, it represents this document has updated all the ledgers of your company code.
Okay.
Okay, this document has updated all the ledgers of your company code. Next point, to see in which ledger it is updated at which period, click on the general ledger view. If you click on general ledger view, down below it will give the ledger. Ledger group is blank, which means all the ledgers are updated. So the ledger list you will get here. Currently, what is this ledger? 0L, leading ledger. In 0L leading ledger, this entry is reflecting in year 2022 period 10. Clear?
Yes.
Similarly, if I click on other ledger, the same entry in non-leading ledger B9, it will be reflected in year 2023 period number 7. This will be auto updated, so we don't need to do anything because you updated the appropriate fiscal year posting period variant for your company code, which is representing your leading, and for your non-leading ledger. Even though it is giving you period number 10 here, when it comes to non-leading, it has become 7.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? So here what is important is your posting date. According to us, today is what we are posting the transaction, or we are posting the entry in October month. October month at any given point of time, as per Indian accounting standard, period number 7. Is it updating in period number 7?
Correct. 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 It's updated in
According
ledger 7.
to IFRS, October month is at any given point of time period number 10. If I switch to IFRS, which means my leading ledger, one sec. Once it will get switched, so it will show you period number 10. So in your reporting, it is not going to create any impact, because when you are recording the transaction, you are always concerned about the transaction date. Transaction date is represented in current month. Correct?
Correct.
So
So
the
we have
date
to
will
make sure that is
automatically date
posting date, transaction date.
posting date. Correct. So that
Posting
will
date is
automatically
important,
reflect
right?
in the appropriate fiscal year posting period based on the ledger setting, leading, non-leading.
Okay. Sir, when interviewer asks me, how will you manage this financial statement and for non-leading, what have to tell them?
You don't have to do anything. It's purely based on the report. The user will just have to select leading or non-leading ledger. On any report, as we saw yesterday,
Yes, sir. Yes. Yesterday we have done ledger specific things.
yes, if I go to trial balance, for example, your trial balance at the bottom will have the option called leading or non-leading ledger. If you want the trial balance of leading ledger, put leading ledger. If you want for non-leading, put non-leading ledger. Accordingly, data will get extracted. On every report in your SAP FI, you will have a ledger column, because you are treating two accounting principles in two different ways. Correct?
Correct.
When these two are different, every report will have that classification, leading, non-leading.
Okay. Sir, one question. Sir, suppose we know this January 23 is last financial year for India, right?
March 23 or January?
January 23 or March 23 also last financial year for India, right?
Okay,
It's a
yeah,
22 fiscal year. Fiscal year is 22 for India.
yes.
Okay. So suppose company in if you are posting to no leading ledger for January month, will it goes to 23 fiscal year, 22 fiscal year?
23 it will go, according to non-leading ledger.
According to
I'll show you
non-leading
here.
financial fiscal year will be 22, right?
I'll put the posting date. Okay, I'll put 2023 1st January. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, okay.
Okay, according to our company code, leading ledger is Jan to December. This period, whatever it is showing, it is representing leading ledger. If I press enter, what is the message you are getting at the bottom?
Yes, adjusted with one. Okay, fine.
Now it is giving you period number 1 2023.
Correct.
Now same date, if I try to put in ledger specific for non-leading, B9, for B9 what it is giving?
10.
10 2022, correct? For leading it is reading as 1 2023. For non-leading it is automatically
Oh,
reading 10 2022.
correct. Okay, sir. Got it, sir.
Yeah.
So
Gaurav?
do we need to settings for that shift indicator for this kind of things?
Yeah. At the fiscal year level, you will maintain that setting. During your fiscal year variant, we have defined that setting, shift indicator and all. If it is for non-calendar year only, for calendar year, no need.
Okay, so okay, so thank you.
Yeah. Gaurav?
Yeah, hi sir. Good evening. Sir, as you mentioned, we have two ledgers here, leading and non-leading, and both are ledger are representing as a ledger groups. So now,
Hmm.
uh, so how system is considering that which one would be the representative ledger here, because both leading and non-leading are two separate ledger group, right? So is any
By default, you're not mentioning any ledger group. Okay, system will always consider leading ledger as representative ledger, or leading ledger is representing the transaction.
okay, okay.
That is the reason your period is coming from the leading ledger as it is representing the transaction. And your non-leading, which is not representing, will get auto updated at the time of posting.
Okay, got it now.
Okay. Yeah. All right, fine then. Let us proceed. And with whatever we have done yesterday, with that, more or less, we are fine with the GL module related transactions. Whatever we are supposed to know, we've completed it till yesterday. How we will be posting normal entries, post with clearing, clear GL account, reversing, resetting, reclassifying, ledger specific entries, ledger comparison, trial balance verification.
Ajay,
After this,
what about
yeah,
mass reversal?
mass that we can do in the upcoming sessions also. When we have more entries, then I'll show that.
Okay.
Okay.
Jay,
Now, after
sorry.
this, what we will have to, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
How about these recurring entries, deferrals and approvals? How
That we
will
will do at
we
the end.
manage?
That nobody will ask us anywhere in our interviews. So that's why whatever is a
Okay,
simple, straightforward, where there is no configuration required, I'm not explaining at this point of time.
okay,
Okay. That is why like our park entries, recurring entries, post with clearing, your
yeah,
hold documents and all, I'm not showing because they do not require any config.
okay,
Okay,
yeah,
theoretically, we will talk about it at later point of time, maybe towards the end, because now we will have to understand the points which are actually important where the functionality is to be understood.
right,
Okay.
sure, sure, thanks.
Yeah. Now, next point, what we will have to do is, now we are fine or we are comfortable with baseline configuration and then GL postings. Once baseline configuration is completed, we are able to post GL transactions, and then we are able to pull the different reports like line item report, balance report, trial balance report. Next thing, we need to slowly start understanding these subledgers. When I talk about subledgers, we are talking about subledgers in SAP FICO. Normally, we have three subledgers in SAP FICO. One is your vendors, second is your customers, third is your fixed assets. Okay, basically these are the three subledgers that we have in SAP FICO. So far, we are able to create the GL account, post an entry to the GL account. When you're talking about GL account, debit, credit, both are GL account. Right? That is what we did in the debit side, and on the credit side, we were giving only GL account. That is where we are calling it as GL module or GL accounting. When it comes to subledger accounting, only one side will be the GL account, the other side will be subledger account. One side will be the GL account, the other side will be the subledger account. When I say subledger account, we are talking about vendor, customer, fixed asset. Your entry can be recorded to a vendor account, your entry can be recorded to a customer account, or it can also be recorded to a fixed asset account. When you're talking about vendor, customer, fixed asset, always see this from the account point of view only. Vendor account, customer account, fixed asset account. irrespective of the debit or credit, because during the transaction, based on the nature of entry, you may be debiting a vendor account, you may also credit the vendor account. In short, debit, credit, both are possible. Debit, credit, both are possible to vendor account, customer account, fixed asset account, based on the nature of transaction. Based on the nature of transaction, if you are debiting to a vendor account, more or less your credit will be the GL account. In short, if you are crediting vendor account, debit will be GL account. In short, your subledger account, offsetting account is always GL account. Subledger account, offsetting account is always a GL account. Either debit or credit will be your subledger. Offsetting account is always your main ledger. Offsetting account is always main ledger. When we are talking about vendor, when you talk, we are talking about accounts payable. Customer, when we talk about, we are talking about accounts receivable. Fixed asset, when you're talking about, we are talking about asset accounting. This is your accounts payable. This is your accounts receivable, and this is your fixed asset. This is your fixed asset. Now, when we are talking about vendor, when we are talking about accounts payable, another point we need to understand here is FIMM integration. And similarly, here we need to understand FIST integration. Here there is nothing as such, no integration here. Here I'll put same. So in short, when you're talking about vendor, we are also representing accounts payable. When you're representing accounts payable, you should also know about FIMM integration. This is also called as P2P cycle. And when it is P2P cycle, that is your O2C cycle. And here you should talk about one sec, direct purchases, PO based purchases. Here direct sales, SO based sales. Nothing as such here because it is completely different asset accounting. And we need to understand document splitting here, document splitting here as well, and here also document splitting we need to understand. And we should also understand aging report here, aging report here, and history report here. And here subledger and main ledger reconciliation. This is this. This is your this one. This is okay. And next one, here we also need to understand business partner, in short BP. Nothing. And next one, customer vendor integration. This is called as CVI. Nothing as such here. In short, these are some of the key points that we need to understand, that we need to know before we start or before we talk about accounts payable, accounts receivable, asset accounting. So we will be talking about asset accounting later on, because before we come to asset accounting, we must have good knowledge, understanding on accounts payable, accounts receivable. Reason being, whenever you are talking about asset, there are 2 points: buying of asset, selling of asset. In short, you will purchase the asset, you will sell the asset. To purchase the asset, you need to know accounts payable. To sell the asset, you need to know accounts receivable. In short, without AP, without AR, we cannot start asset accounting. Right, this we will do later point of time, because we need to have different level of understanding before we get the logic clarity on asset accounting in S4 HANA system. Now, let us begin with the basic understanding of your accounts payable or vendors. In general, let's say, if I take balance sheet, for example, assuming this is the balance sheet. In balance sheet, I have liabilities. I also have assets here. Liabilities and then assets. Inside the liabilities, normally whenever we prepare manual accounting, we have seen something called sundry creditors. In the liability side, we have seen sundry creditors. On the asset side, we have seen sundry debtors. This is what normally we have seen in the balance sheet: sundry debtors, sundry creditor. Whenever you talk about sundry debtor, whenever we talk about sundry creditor, we need to understand what exactly debtor is representing, what exactly creditor is representing. Now, if you look at sundry debtor is nothing but customers. Sundry debtor is nothing but customer. Sundry creditor is nothing but vendors. Okay, vendor, you also call it as supplier. And here in S4 HANA, you need to also remember a term called BP, business partner. Customer, you also call it as BP. And you can also call it as buyer. And if there is a buyer, and I'll put here seller. Okay, there are different names through which we will be calling, but either ways it is the same. In place of sundry creditor, in place of sundry debtor, these are the alternative names. Apart from this, you can also call it as accounts payable, accounts receivable. This way also you can call it in your balance sheet. But end of the day, whenever you're talking about accounts payable, accounts receivable, we need to understand how this is represented in your financials. How this is represented in your financials. Once we know that, okay, my creditor is represented in liability, debtor is represented in asset. What is creditor, what is debtor? We need to understand based on vendor, customer, payable, receivable. Once you have this differentiation without any confusion, these minute confusions we have to remove from the beginning onwards. Otherwise, we will get confused between supplier, seller, buyer, creditor, debtor and all. Now, here let me put debtor is equal to D, creditor is equal to K. In SAP, whenever you talk about debtor, it is D. Whenever you talk about creditor, it is K. Remember, D means debtor, K means creditor. Creditor means vendor, debtor means supplier, debtor means your customer. You need to understand, if you are talking about debtor, your account type is D. In our posting period variant, we have seen plus ADKMS. D represents debtor. Debtor means customer. K represents creditor. Creditor means vendor. So slowly you have to logically connect to each and every point, which will help you in future wherever you are working. You don't need to recollect, revise everything. By looking at the terminology, by hearing to something, you have to slowly start recollecting, okay, this is related to this. Logically, if you are able to remember, understand it, you don't have to worry about these points wherever you are. Maybe you are in an interview, you are in a project, you are with your client user. You don't need to get panic. You don't need to think that I am unable to remember, recollect and all, because you need to see them in a different way, in a practical manner, so that by the moment you look at any point, the moment you initiate any conversation, you are able to openly talk as you are familiar with this. When I say this, when you're talking, I should feel that yes, you have experience on it, you are aware of the concept or fundamentals of it. Next point, we need to understand, first we will talk about accounts payable, and then I will talk about accounts receivable. So one point, AP and AR are opposite to each other. AP and AR are opposite to each other. When I say opposite to each other, if you know accounts payable, you automatically know what is accounts receivable, because this is exactly reverse. Debit becomes credit, credit becomes debit, purchase becomes a sale, sale becomes purchase. But you have to see it from a transaction point of view. Just like that, don't reverse it. You need to see it from a transaction point of view, assuming that I am buying a product from you or you are selling something to me. The transaction is between you and me, the same thing. The same product you sold me, the same product I purchased. For me, you are a supplier, for you, I am a customer. The transaction is the same. The way I am treating is different, the way you are treating is different for the same transaction. So it's like a mirror. You have to see the reflection of it. But don't try to understand accounts payable as a fresh from the scratch. You should always relate accounts receivable from your accounts payable, because majoritarily payable is a little bigger module, a little sensitive module than accounts receivable. In the payable is where you are making the payment, your money is going out. You have to be very conscious, very careful wherever our money is going. That is why during the payable we have to be a little more conscious. Once you understand your accounts payable, at least basic fundamentals, it is quite easy, quite opposite to understand your accounts receivable. Automatically you will know what is AR, because you already know what is AP. It is just that we need to list out points in a sequential logical order, which we will do. And next point, we need to talk about purchases, we need to talk about sales. Here when I am talking about purchases, here when I am talking about sales, I need to make sure purchases, I am going to make purchases from vendor, I am going to sell to customer. I'll make purchase from vendor and I'll make sale to customer. Whenever I'm talking about my vendor, vendor is always liability. Whenever I'm talking about vendor, vendor is always liability. Whenever I'm talking about customer, customer is always asset. Okay, vendor is always liability, customer is always asset. Now, always credit balance. Here it should be always debit balance. In short, your vendor account ideally shows credit balance all the time. Your customer account always shows debit balance all the time. Why it has to show credit balance? Because your vendor is a liability. We are liable to pay to the vendor. Whenever you are talking about a liability, we are talking about a negative number. Negative number is nothing but credit balance. Similarly, whenever you are talking about customer, you are talking about asset. Asset always shows a positive value. Positive value is nothing but a debit balance. Now, ideally, whenever you look at the customer balance or vendor balance, not the transaction, you're not supposed to look at the transaction because transaction can contain a debit and credit. Your transaction can contain debit and credit and both. But you are always supposed to look at the closing balance of the vendor, closing balance of the customer. If my vendor closing balance, if I see, the ideal balance in your vendor account is supposed to be a credit balance because we are supposed to pay to the vendor. You are supposed to pay to the vendor. You are liable to make the payment to the vendor. It is your liability. Liability always shows a credit balance. Similarly, on the other side, on your customer account is always supposed to be a positive number as we are supposed to receive the money from customer. As we are supposed to receive the money from customer, this will be your asset. And when you're talking about purchases, when you're talking about sales, we need to understand how purchasing will happen, how selling will happen in any organization. How purchasing will happen, how sales will happen in any organization. Now, first thing, before we start the purchases, we talked about vendor. Before we talked about sales, we talked about customer. In S4HANA, we treat vendor and customer as business partner. In S4HANA, we treat vendor and customer as business partner. When you're talking about a business partner, first we need to understand what is business partner. When you talk about business partner, first we need to understand what is business partner. After that, we need to understand what is customer, what is vendor. We all know that customer is the person who is purchasing from us and vendor is the person who is selling to us. Now, either of the case, you are doing a transaction with the person. Either of the case, you are doing a transaction with vendor, you are doing a transaction with customer. So instead of calling them with a different names, he is a person with whom you are doing business. He is a person with whom we are doing business. With anybody we are dealing or with anybody we are doing a business, we normally call it as business partner in S4HANA system. In S4HANA, with whosoever you are dealing or you are doing a business transaction. When I am talking about business transaction, let us be very specific, purchases and sales. Any purchase transaction, any sale transaction you are making with any person. In short, you are calling it as a partner. Because normally whenever you do it, you call it as a partner. You are doing business. Now this business partner is the person or is the organization or is the group. So your BP can be a person, your BP can be an organization, your BP can be a group. Normally you will be using person or organization. Let me put BP can be person, organization or group. You call it as a person if it is an individual. You call it as a person if it is individual. You call it as an organization if it is a company. You call it as a group if it is a group company where you are selling commonly to multiple legal entities. Let's say I'm talking about Tata. Tata may be having multiple company codes, Tata Steel, Tata Capital, but according to you, it's a Tata group. So in that case, you may be creating as a group, but normally we don't use group majoritarily. You will be mostly dealing with person and organization. It's only the classification, otherwise there is no differentiation here. Just you need to identify the customer and vendor as a person and as an organization. By looking at the name, you can identify. If I call my name Ajay, by looking at my name, you will say that this is a person because it's a name of a person. If I say Ajay India Private Limited or Ajay Training Institute, then you are not going to call it as a person because I'm not stating only the name, I am telling the company name. When I am telling the company name, you are going to call it as organization. Make sure you are able to differentiate between person and organization. This differentiation is clearly based on name. If your name is person, maybe name of a person, any name, whatever you take, you will call it as my BP is a person, individual. If my BP is a name of a company, I will call it as my BP is organization. Group is similar to organization only. Next. In S4HANA, we treat vendor and customer BP as vendor and customer based on the BP roles. In S4HANA, we treat BP as vendor and customer based on the BP role. When I'm talking about BP role, first I'm going to identify a person or an organization with whom I'm going to deal or I'm going to do the business. Whether I purchase or I sell, it depends on the nature of agreement between us. Let's say I have identified one name. Let's say I have identified Ajay as a business partner with whom I'm trying to do the business. When I'm trying to do the business with a person called Ajay, first I need to create this person as a business partner in my company. First I need to create this person as business partner in my company, because if you're going to do business with me, I am only one person. There is no duplicate for me. According to you or according to me, I am only a single person. There is no duplicate for me. How I am going to say I am a single person, I am not a duplicate? Not based on my name. You may find Ajay with several names, but when you look at my details, when I say my details, my name, my address, all other information cannot be duplicated, will not be duplicated. Right? So how I am going to segregate that this is a unique person? Whether you purchase or you sell, you are doing the business with a single person. You may be purchasing, you may be selling, but either ways it is me only. I am the same person. So when I am the same person doing business with you, there is no point you are going to create two master records for me, one for customer, one for vendor. This approach we don't follow in S4HANA system. In S4HANA system, before you treat me as a customer, before you treat me as a vendor, first you treat me as a business partner. First you need to treat me as business partner. First, when you treat me as business partner, then you can consider me as your customer, you can consider me as your vendor, depending on the nature of transaction that you are going to perform with me. Assuming you are going to purchase from me, first you will check whether I am existing in your system or not. First you are going to check whether this person is existing in our system or not. How do you check whether I am existing in your system or not? You are going to verify whether there is any BP master created for me or not. You will verify whether there is any BP master created for me or not. If there is a BP master created, you are telling that yes, this person is already available in our company. Your name and address is already existing in our database, which is nothing but business partner database. Your ID or your details are already existing in our system. Then you are going to see how your details are existing or how your details are currently representing. So what is your role in my company currently? Is your role in my company as a customer or is your role in my company as a vendor? Next thing is to check whether my role is as a customer or my role is as a vendor. Because your business partner, you are going to treat as customer or vendor based on the BP role. You are going to assign the respective role to treat me as a vendor, to treat me as customer. Again, when you are treating me as vendor, there are two separate roles. When you are treating me as a customer, there are two separate roles. I'll put for BP vendor, there are two roles. Similarly, for BP customer, there are two roles. Now we need to understand why vendor has got two roles, why customer has got two roles. There is a different purpose. So all this, what we in general or in the general practice, what we will do, we treat as vendor, we treat as customer. But when it comes to S4 HANA, before you treat as a customer, before you treat as a vendor, you are forced to treat as a business partner. First, you are going to consider as a business partner. Fine, we are considering as a business partner. Based on the business partner, we need to treat as customer and vendor. This is also fine. I understood BP. Now I am converting my BP to customer or vendor. Now when I am talking about BP customer, I am telling there are two types of customer. When I am talking about BP vendor, again I am talking about two types of vendor. Again here is a confusion. Why vendor is of two types? Why customer is of two types? Why vendor is of two types? Why customer is of two types? Again we need to understand. Why there are two type of vendors? We have PO vendor, we have non-PO vendor. Okay, we have PO vendor, which means purchase order based vendor. You have non-PO vendor. Similarly, we have SO customer, sales order customer. We have non-sales order customer also. First of all, we need to understand what is PO vendor and what is non-PO vendor. So this is used in MM module. PO vendor is used in MM module and this is used in FI module. PO vendor is used in MM module. Non-PO vendor is used in FI module. Similarly, SO customer. This is used in SD module. Non-SO customer, non-sales order customer. This is used in FI module. Now, why we have customer in why we have vendor in MM and why we have vendor in FI? Similarly, why we have customer in SD? Why we have customer in FI? What this customer in FI doing? What this customer in SD doing? Similarly, what vendor is doing in MM and FI? We need to slowly start understanding. Right? So here, this is for purchase order based procurement. This is for purchase order based procurement. Procurement is nothing but purchase only. And this is for direct procurement. When I say direct procurement, direct purchases. When you're talking about procurement, you're procuring. Now I'll put the points later on. Similarly, when we talk about SO, customer, this is used in SD module, and this is for sales order based sales. Okay, this is for sales order based sales, and this is for direct sales. We have sales order based sales, we also have direct sales. Now we purchase below things from vendor. We normally purchase below things from vendor. One is material, two is service, three is fixed assets. Okay, this is one point which we need to understand. Okay, this is one point. And similarly, we sell below things to customer. Same things. You can sell same points to the customer also. First, we need to have basic idea, understanding, then it will be easy for us to connect to the practical points, practical scenarios. So whenever you're talking about procurement, we are talking about purchases. You can purchase a material from a vendor, you can purchase a service from a vendor, you can purchase fixed asset from a vendor. Similarly, when you're selling to a customer, you can sell the same thing. You can sell a material to a customer, you can sell services to your customer, you can also sell fixed asset to a customer. Now these sales and purchases are handled in MM module, SD module, FI module respectively. Anything which is handled directly in FI module, which is called as plain or basic accounts payable, basic accounts receivable. If it is handled only in FI, which is your basic AP, basic AR, which nobody asks you, which nobody wants to hear from you. Whenever somebody is asking you about accounts payable or accounts receivable, you should not talk about direct sale, direct purchase. Nobody is interested in direct sale, direct purchases, which is only FI module. When I'm talking about accounts payable, I am more connected with your explanation only when you talk about MM module. Similarly, I am more interested about your accounts receivable only when you talk about SD module. Then as a FICO consultant, why do we need to talk about MM module? Why do we talk about SD module? The reason is, in any organization, majority of the purchases will take place based on the purchase order. Majority of the sales will take place based on the sales order. Right? Most of the purchases are based on the order, either purchase order PO or sales order SO. If it is coming from purchase order PO, you will be calling it as FI/MM integration. If it is coming from SO, which is your sales order, you are going to call it as FI/SD integration. Your FI/MM integration is also called as P2P cycle. Your SD integration, your FI/SD integration is also called as O2C cycle, procurement to payment, order to cash. So from the procurement until payment, what is happening? From order until the cash, until the collection, what is happening, you need to track, and we need to understand in a practical manner. When we say that we need to understand in a practical manner, once we have the basic idea at this level, then it will be easy for us to understand what is AP, what is AR. Otherwise, the config is very simple. It will be hardly 15 minutes to complete accounts payable basic config, another 15 minutes to complete accounts receivable config. And then you can create a business partner, create a customer vendor, post a transaction, it will be over. But we need to practically understand tomorrow when you look at any scenario, or if you are able to take an example of your own, make sure you are able to make the other person understand how it is happening from the transaction until the balance sheet reporting. How your entry is reflecting, what entries are coming, where the accounting is impacting. Not only the configuration but also the business process you have to be thorough with. Now, if I give you a simple example, let's say, I'm only writing the points, we will elaborate everything with examples. I'll put FIMM integration. When you talk about FIMM integration, we need to understand purchase order. Only the key points I'm writing, I'm not writing RFQ, all these points, purchase requisition, I'm not writing, they are not relevant. Understand straight away from purchase order. We need to understand what is purchase order. Based on the purchase order, you will put goods receipt note. Based on this, invoice receipt. Based on this, outgoing payment. Based on this, bank recon, bank reco, or bank reconciliation in short. Okay, bank reconciliation. Now here another point, accounting impact. Theoretically, we just need to read and understand this at the beginning. That is more than sufficient. As we progress, we will understand everything in detail. Okay, so purchase order, accounting impact, no. Goods receipt, yes. Invoice receipt, yes. This is also yes. This is also yes. Here I am writing only the accounting impact. I have given yes, no. Whether we have accounting impact, yes means accounting entry will be recorded at debit and credit. No means no debit credit will be recorded. Here I'll put accounting entry, accounting impact, and then accounting entry. What accounting entry during the purchase order? Here this is blank because there is no accounting impact. Goods receipt, I'll put inventory or service or fixed asset debit, GRIR credit. This is the accounting entry. INV is nothing but inventory, inventory is nothing but material, SER is nothing but service, FXA is nothing but fixed asset. Okay. Now during the invoice receipt, GRIR debit, vendor credit. During outgoing payment, vendor debit, bank outgoing credit. During bank reconciliation, bank outgoing debit, bank main account credit. In short, these are the accounting entries that will be recorded during your FIMM integration. Next one, integration entry. This is blank, this is yes, this is yes, this is no, this is no. These points you need to understand first. When I say you need to understand, make sure you remember these points in the similar way. Later on we will elaborate, we will understand why we are writing all these points. But for time being, no other go, you need to by heart or you need to remember, mug up, whatever. If you remember as it is, these are valid wherever you go. Whosoever you talk to, nobody will tell you wrong if you tell the points in this manner. So FIMM integration I am writing as purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, outgoing payment, bank reconciliation. For purchase order, I am telling there is no accounting impact. For goods receipt, yes, there is an accounting impact. Invoice receipt, yes, there is an accounting impact. For outgoing payment, yes, there is an accounting impact. For bank reconciliation, yes, there is an accounting impact. When you're talking about accounting impact, you're talking about debit credit journal entry. When you're talking about no accounting entry, no debit, no credit is recorded. Now, purchase order, since there is no accounting impact, no journal entry. During goods receipt, you should never remember inventory debit, GRIR credit. You should strictly remember inventory or service or fixed asset debit to GRIR account. Why inventory? Why service? Why fixed asset? In the above statement we have written, you will be purchasing either material or service or fixed asset. If you are purchasing material, you have to debit material. If you are purchasing service, you have to debit service. If you are purchasing fixed asset, you have to debit fixed asset. For irrespective of what I am purchasing, I cannot blindly put inventory. I cannot blindly tell inventory. You need to be very specific, especially during your interviews. When you are answering these questions, you have to be very conscious. Small minute mistakes, they will catch hold of us. They will try to put a different cross questioning. Right? We should not give that chance. The moment you start explaining the points, let the other person feel that you are explaining in a proper manner. Right? Now this purchase order is called as PO. When you talk about purchase order, we call it as PO. When you talk about goods receipt, you call it as GRN, goods receipt note. Invoice receipt, you call it as LIV, logistics invoice verification. Invoice receipt is nothing but logistics invoice verification. Outgoing payment, there is nothing called. Okay, and then bank reconciliation, you may call it as BRS. But for outgoing payment, normally we don't put any specific thing or any specific name for outgoing payment. You can only call it as payment. I'll only put PMT, payment here. Only the shortcuts for us to understand, for us to remember in easier way. Okay. Now the last point is very important. Last point I am writing whether this is integration entry. If you see this purchase order, there is no integration, there is no accounting entry. So no need to specify this is integration entry or not. GRN, yes, this is an integration entry. Invoice receipt, yes, this is an integration entry. Outgoing payment, no, this is not the integration related entry. BRS is also not the integration related entry. These are direct FI entries, direct FI JVs. These are not related to FIMM integration. These are part of your P2P cycle, not the integration. Your FIMM integration is only these 2 points. Only these 2 points are related to your integration. Okay, only these 2 points are related to integration. The remaining points are not related to integration. Now, config, there's nothing, no config for this, no config for this. This is your OBYC. This is also OBYC. Table, no table. This is your T030, T030, no table, no table. Why I'm writing no table? Because I'm writing exclusively with respect to FIMM integration. Whatever the points are related to FIMM integration, only those points I have listed. The remaining points I have not listed because I have not considered them as integration related accounting entry. Okay, these points first we need to remember. When you refer it, make sure you are able to adjust the column widths and all. Wherever you are unable to see it, just decrease the column size to see it properly. Since we have different things in the same sheet, so based on the field what I'm seeing, I'm just expanding accordingly. In short, this is related to your FIMM integration. Now, same thing, considering the same point, I am going to write another table for FISD integration. For FISD integration, let me write the same points based on my MM integration. So as I said, if you know the MM integration, SD integration is ulta. In short, if you know the accounts payable, accounts receivable is ulta. FI MM integration, here I will change this to FI SD integration. Headings I will keep as it is, and here I am going to replace it. Purchase order I am writing, purchase order will become sales order, sales order will become SO. Okay, next one, goods receipt. If you are purchasing, you are going to receive the goods. If you are selling, you are going to deliver the goods. When you purchase, you are receiving. When you are selling, you are delivering. So I am going to write delivery note. Okay, goods receipt note I am going to write it as delivery note. So delivery I will put DEL. Okay, next one, after delivery there is another point called additional point with respect to FISD integration exclusively, post goods issue. This is called as PGI. Post goods issue, we call it as PGI. Next one, invoice receipt. Here you are receiving the invoice. To the customer you are going to generate the invoice. In short, you are going to bill the invoice, bill to your customer, which is nothing but your billing. Billing, let me call it as INV only. And payment is normal. Bank reconciliation is also normal. There is no change in it.
It is incoming payment, right?
Yeah, sorry. It will be incoming payment, you're right. Outgoing payment will become incoming payment. Bank reconciliation will remain as it is. Now, next point, when we write about the accounting impact, for purchase order, there is no accounting entry. For sales order also, there is no accounting entry. During the delivery also, there is no accounting entry. And during post goods issue, yes, there is an accounting entry. During goods issue, there is an accounting entry. During billing, there is an accounting entry. During incoming payment, there is an accounting entry. During bank reconciliation, there is an accounting entry. Next one, when we talk about accounting entry is there, we need to know what is that accounting entry which we are going to write. Here during delivery, there is no accounting entry. I am going to keep it blank. During post goods issue, you are going to write COGS account debit. And inventory account credit. COGS means cost of goods sold account debit. Inventory means your material or stock account. Okay. Next one is your billing. During the billing, your accounting entry will be customer debit, sales credit. During the billing, we are going to get an accounting entry, customer account debit, sales account credit. And during the incoming payment, bank main account debit, bank incoming debit, customer credit. During the incoming payment, bank incoming account will be debited, customer account will be credited. During the bank reconciliation account, bank main account will be debited and bank incoming will be credited. This is the accounting entry during your BRS for this. Now, next point, after the accounting entry, we were talking about integration entry. When you're talking about integration entry, sales order, there is no accounting entry, no point of integration, we are leaving it blank. Next one, during delivery, there is no accounting entry, there will be no integration here. Next one, post goods issue, there is an accounting entry, yes, this is an integration entry. Billing, there is an accounting entry, yes, this is your integration related entry. Next one, incoming payment is not related to FISD integration. BRS is also not related to FISD integration as they are direct FI module entries or direct FI JVs. Next one, wherever we are talking about integration entry, we need to write config, where you will maintain the config and where you will maintain the table. For delivery, there is nothing, I'll put blank here. Similarly, for post goods issue, configuration is OBYC, table is T030. Okay, for post goods issue, it is part of OBYC. According to the above table, we were assuming that OBYC is related to FIMM integration. During your SD integration also, you are writing OBYC, which is MM integration, which means your SD cycle or your P2, your order to cash FIMM integration will bring PGI document or PGI accounting document, accounting entry from MM integration setting, not from the SD integration setting. Always remember, wherever material is involved, it is straight away related to MM module. Wherever material is involved, it is straight away related to MM module. That is why MM integration setting, MM integration table we are updating for PGI. Next one is your billing. This is where your SD integration will take place. It will take place in VKOA table. Sorry, it will take place in VKOA transaction code, and we have tables. Which table will be updated when you do it? So this will be C001 to C005. Okay, so this table is what you need to remember before you start learning or before we start understanding accounts payable, accounts receivable. This table is what we need to understand first. Try to understand, try to remember, so that when we talk about accounts payable, when we talk about accounts receivable, we don't find it difficult anywhere. At the end of your accounts payable, accounts receivable, this is what we need to talk, this is what we need to explain to anybody, especially In your interview, this is what they expect from you. And above, if I go, whatever the points we have listed with respect to subledgers, accounts payable, accounts receivable, these points as it is, try to read and then remember. Okay, from tomorrow onwards, we will take simple examples and then we will start our AP configuration, parallelly AR configuration. I will show AP config, AR config parallelly. I will configure AP, I will give this scenario on AR, so that exactly what I did in AP, you will have to do it in AR. Then you will understand whether your accounts payable understanding is correct. If your AP understanding is correct, you will understand automatically AR. Then I will give some scenarios in the Excel sheet. In this session only, I will write some examples and I'll put customer name and all. You have to create the same customer, same vendor. I will put some transaction figure. I'll give you the customer name, vendor name, some transactions I will give, and what you need to do, create the customer with the same name, vendor with the same name, perform the same accounting transactions, pull out the customer report, vendor report, make sure your customer account balance, vendor account balance is exactly the same as what we are assuming, so that you will understand how to look at the customer report, how to look at the vendor report, how to analyze it. Later on, various points, various scenarios related to customer vendor will be easy for us, right? Now these are all the mandatory prerequisites, without which if we try to do AP AR config straight away, we will complete the config but we will not understand the logic. Scenario, requirement, business process can only be understood once we go through these points at the beginning. Clear it? These are only the basic points which we have listed in the layman language. Okay, any questions so far? Sandeep?
Sir, my question is not on the APAR part to discuss, but the ledger, leading ledger on the non-leading ledger.
Okay.
Sir, for suppose we have created a non-leading ledger and in the year end, and since the non-leading ledger can be created only on the year beginning or year end, this is right, sir?
Correct.
If for suppose you have created a non-leading ledger or extension ledger in the middle of the year or non-leading ledger at the end of the year. So existing data of leading ledger, whatever the data is there any program or anything by which we can push the whole data to non-leading?
No, we cannot do that. So that is the reason we use
Okay.
extension ledger, which will bring the delta transactions from the leading and the real-time transactions from the extension ledger. But normally this scenario we will raise it to SAP. Whenever you get this scenario, we will raise it to SAP. Because
Sir,
from our
for
side,
suppose,
yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
if extension ledger has been created in the mid of the year, then whatever the transaction that we are going to create after creation of extension, that is going to update the extension. So whatever the
Correct.
prior data, that is also same. We have to rise
You
to
will
SAP.
you will assign the underlying ledger there.
Yes, yes, correct, sir.
Since you put underlying ledger, the previous transactions
Okay.
will come from leading ledger to extension based on it is the underlying ledger.
Okay. So whatever the underlying ledger, that is we are going to assign. Based on that, all the previous data will be get dumped to the extension ledger.
Correct.
Sir, one more question I have.
Now, if this is
Accounting
not
principle.
related to this, well, I'll take some other time, because if somebody is going through this recording, we'll create confusion for them unnecessarily, because we've discussed
Sure,
about
sure, sir. No
APAR.
issues.
Yeah. For the
Yeah.
generic questions, we'll connect one day exclusively for the doubts clarification. There you can put any question, or
Yeah.
in the
No,
interview
this is
related
related.
session. Yeah.
Yeah, this is related to lecture. I will ask on interview session, sir. No issues. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Gaurav.
Yeah, hi sir. Sir, it's not specific to this, subledger, but somehow, as you mentioned that GRIR entry, which is a offsetting account. This offsetting account is SAP terminology, right, sir? But if we
No,
convert
no,
this
no,
into,
no. Offsetting account is not SAP terminology.
okay,
Offsetting account is your accounting terminology only. Wherever you're talking about debit, credit becomes offsetting. If you're talking about credit, debit becomes offsetting. So in SAP terminology, you call it as sub account or clearing account or waiting account.
okay, but sir, actually, can you give one example, like how it can be related to the accounting? Because most of the time we heard about offsetting, GRIR is offsetting account or a clearing account. So those, how can we relate into accounting?
See, if you relate it, let's say I talk about rent.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Now I'm telling that I paid rent by cash. What is offsetting for rent?
Cash,
Now cash has become offsetting.
correct.
Now I will talk about cash. Now I say that cash is paid for salaries. What is offsetting for cash?
Salaries,
Now I'll put inventory. Now I will tell I used inventory for sales purpose or for delivery purpose. What is the offsetting for inventory?
sales or delivery.
Offsetting for inventory. If you're delivering to somebody, if you're delivering or if you're issuing the goods, what what will be the offsetting for your inventory?
GRIR,
When you're delivering, not when you're receiving.
COGS.
cost of goods sold, COG.
COGS. Now here COGS is becoming offsetting.
Okay,
Okay, let's say again I'll put inventory only. This time I will tell I'm purchasing it. I'm receiving the material. What will be the offsetting?
GRIR.
Yeah.
Now everywhere you're talking about offsetting account only,
Correct.
because when you're talking about offsetting, you're representing only one side of the accounting.
Okay,
If I'm
okay.
talking about cash, I'm talking about debit. My offsetting may be credit.
So it goes to similar way for clearing account also. Can we say
If,
salary?
yeah, yeah. Any account. You can take any account. If you're talking about one side, the other side becomes offsetting.
And both offsetting and clearing account are same, sir?
No. Offsetting
Okay,
is used as a generic terminology for all your accounting.
okay, okay,
Clearing is used only for the balance sheet accounts where the offsetting entry is required. When I say offsetting, again, if there is a debit, I need a credit. If there is a credit, I need a debit.
okay. But sir, again, if you are saying balance sheet account, then GRIR is a balance sheet. So why it is offsetting? It should be clearing, right?
When I say GRIR, okay.
Huh?
Now in GRIR, I will be receiving debit, I will be receiving credit, both, correct?
Correct,
I need to match debit with credit.
correct.
Now matching of this debit and credit, I can call it as clearing, correct?
Right, right.
The same clearing, we also call it as offsetting, netting. Net off, knock off, offset, clear, match off. Different terminologies will be used, but the logic is one and the same.
Okay, if any transaction is having dual effect, either debit or credit, then we called as clearing. If it is not, then it would be an offset.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, got it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Vinod?
Sir, I have a couple of questions. Like, first one, you said when payment is made to vendor, that is no integration, right?
Correct.
Okay. So when we make payment, when so this people has to know, right, whether that vendor is paid out or not. How we will tell them? How we are going to tell them whether we paid, whether clear the balance, enter the balance, enter. How people will come to know?
People are not concerned about the payments related to the vendor. In case if they want to know the payment status of a particular invoice, they will tell that please contact or please reach out to our treasury team or banking team, accounting or finance team.
Okay. So there nothing to do with the payment and all.
Once the invoice posting is done, role ends there. It is pure accounting related thing. Because from the
Oh,
accounting side, what you will do based on the due date, based on your funds availability, you are going to release the payment. Correct?
yes, sir.
So it has got nothing to do with Even if guy gets, or let's say your further purchase is on hold, assuming that you purchased one transaction and you placed another order. Your vendor is telling no, we cannot deliver the goods or we cannot supply the goods because your previous payment is pending. Until we receive the payment, we are going to put your orders on hold or we are blocking the orders. We will not deliver any further thing. That time your consultant or the procurement team, what they will do, they'll tell that please reach out to the finance team. They'll forward the mail or query to the finance team. They will check and tell when payment will be released and all.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay. Sir, see, you actually, I want to ask this only. See, last person, one person asked me about the GRIR.
Yeah.
So, what you ask, so suppose if there is a balance in GRIR clearing account, how will you manage this one? What you have done for the GRIR month and clearing something there?
Normally, whenever you have GRIR account at the end of every month, you have a month-end activity called GRIR clearing. So how system will perform the GRIR clearing? It will verify based on the purchase order. Against the purchase order, you received the goods and then you received the invoice. Against the PO, if GRN is posted, invoice is posted, it will do auto match off. Clearing will happen automatically. Okay. And where whatever the balance is left in the GRIR account, you should have a justification why there is a balance. Because GRIR always shows a credit balance as it is a liability. Is that right? GRIR always shows a credit balance.
Maybe.
GRIR always shows a credit balance. It is supposed to show credit balance. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Sir,
if your GRIR account is showing a credit balance, which represents you have received goods or services, but invoice is yet to be processed. So what you will do, you will look at what is the open GRIR balance. It will give you the list of purchase order. You will take the list of purchase orders. You will check against this purchase order whether we received invoice or not. If we received the invoice, whether this invoice can be accounted in this month or not. If this can be accounted before closure of your month, you need to ensure the invoice is booked. If invoice cannot be booked for any reason, you need to have a justification. Out of let's say 100 GRIR account, 30 related to invoices received, but we are having some clarifications. Invoice is yet to be approved by the finance department or XYZ department. The moment we receive the invoice, we don't process the invoice just like that. You need to confirm that the goods and services received, and then the invoice will have to be physically approved. Only once the invoice is approved, that is where we are going to process the invoice. Otherwise, it is not processed. So when we do the further transactions, you will have clear understanding with practical examples. Okay?
Yeah, sir. Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. Rakesh?
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. For example, my business is service industry. Still, will MM consultant and SD consultant will involve?
Yes, you will have service material also, and you will be selling the services, right?
Okay. For example, if my business is in education industry, like
Okay.
in that also MM consultant and SD consultant will be there, sir.
Can be created. Yes, we can create there also. And then you are selling the service, right? Education is again a service. It's not a physical product. You will be creating service material.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or can you please once again repeat the difference between clearing and offsetting account?
Offsetting account is used in general in accounting. Let's say if you're talking about debit, credit becomes offsetting in every accounting scenario. Okay. Clearing means wherever you need to match off debit and credit, you need to make the account balance zero. Wherever you need to make balance zero, that is where you are going to do the clearing. Like I took 100 or I posted 100 debit, I need to make it zero. To make it 100 zero, I need to put minus 100. So this plus 100 minus 100, I am doing something called clearing. We normally call it as knock off, net off, match off, correct? This is called as clearing. The existing debit, existing credit you are linking is called as clearing.
Sir, for every debit amount, there should be corresponding credit amount, right? So how does that differ for clearing and offsetting?
For every debit and every credit, now when you're talking about a debit, you're talking about credit because there should be a corresponding credit, right? Correct?
Yeah.
If I'm talking about, let's say, a cash account,
Yes.
I say that in cash account or in any other account, let's say in cash account, I am seeing a debit of 20,000. Now you need to know why this debit 20,000 is posted. Agree?
Yes. Huh.
Now to know why 20,000 debit is posted, you need to know the offsetting account. Offsetting means if cash is debited, what is credited? You're referring to the credit side of the leg or the credit side of the entry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got it? So I can use offsetting anywhere in accounting, but clearing I can use it only for my balance sheet account, especially which are payable and receivable in nature.
Okay. Okay.
I need to track what is current outstanding. Let's say I took 1,000 from you and then I paid
Hmm.
800. Now there is balance of 200, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So to find out what is the balance or everything is clear or not, I have to do clearing. Clearing is nothing
Okay.
but match off, knock off, we will call it, right? That we'll have to do.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Got it.
Purva?
Sir, in FISD level, so we have maintained inventory only. So we can write inventory service, fixed asset also, right?
No, fixed asset we
PJ.
don't sell it through SD integration. Fixed asset will be sold through asset accounting module.
So that is fixed entry level, COGS and inventory. That is fixed.
Yeah, it is fixed entry. That's why I did not mention what kind of inventory it is, whether it is service material, finished material, I did not put. I've put only inventory.
Okay. And invoice billing level, so sales is created, maintained. So is there any difference in there, sales and revenue, sir?
Any difference between sales and revenue?
Means if I want to maintain revenue, so it is what is the difference
Revenue, you
sales
mean
and
to say profit? No, normally when we
sometimes
talk about revenue, we represent credit entries during your sale. In place of sale, you can get other accounting also.
yes, some systems they are maintaining revenue also instead of sale.
The naming wise, it is one and the same.
Okay,
Whether you call
naming.
it as sale or you call it as revenue, it is one and the same.
Okay. So FIMM integration you maintain, that is P2P cycle only, right, sir?
Yeah, P2P cycle only.
Okay. If interviewer asks P2P cycle, so we have to explain this thing only. Correct?
Yes, from purchase order only you explain. You don't need to talk about quotation, purchase requisition, not required.
Okay.
Straight away you can talk from purchase order. In case if they ask what happens before purchase order, then you can tell request for quotation, vendor evaluation, purchase requisition and all. Otherwise they are not relevant, not required.
Oh. So is it need to talk about entry level also, only just process steps?
No. The whatever is there on the Excel sheet, everything you need to tell as it is, without skipping any point.
Okay.
Accounting entry you need to tell, and the whole cycle, only two are related to integration. Last two are not related to integration. Correct?
Correct.
Because only for these two you have maintained config and then table. The remaining are direct accounting entries. To complete the cycle, you need to pass the last two transactions also.
Okay. Here is inbound delivery, outbound delivery also there, right? First is outbound delivery, second is inbound delivery.
Yeah,
So some people will ask inbound delivery entry, outbound delivery entry also. Aspects.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, fine then. Go through this Excel sheet once, and then if you have any doubts, questions, clarifications, make a note of it. So I'll answer your questions tomorrow before the session, and then we will start accounts payable.